I don't know if anyone listening right now, I definitely know no one in this studio had a better day yesterday than one Tom Brady. Christian Gokel alongside Cam Ursher here on Second Down. Glad to have you alongside Cam. I'm sure you were following along on social media. It was an awesome day to be a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan yesterday. Awesome day, obviously, to be a Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Seemed like a hell of a day to be Tom Brady. Boat parade, after winning the 7th Super Bowl of your career with your family, fans, they're there, but you're also separated, obviously, by water, boats, and then like it looked like SEAL Team 6 next to at least Tom Brady's boat there. Looked like a hell of a day for one Tom Brady yesterday.
Yeah, had a few drinks, a few,
A few,
too
a
too
few.
many drinks, too many drinks. But hey, man, he's what 43, got his 7th ring. Why not? I mean,
Well,
why not new location?
you got to wonder, right, Cam? Because Tom Brady has the diet, right? He's on the TB12 method, doesn't eat strawberries, eats way cleaner. I probably have more calories in a week than Tom, or in a day than Tom Brady has in a week, right? So, how many hard seltzers do you think it took to get Tom Brady where he needed to be?
Uh, you know what? Not too many. Maybe like 3 or 4. Not too many, man. But I mean, he deserves it. I give him that. He
Yeah.
deserves it.
And again, for those who didn't see it yesterday, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers celebrating their Super Bowl. Tom Brady celebrating his 7th Super Bowl win, and they had a boat parade, and things got a little bit loose at the boat parade. Obviously, Gronk was doing Gronk things, but the guy who stole the show was Tom Brady. He a little loose, having to be babysat by some of the backup quarterbacks there, which I thought was great. But Cam, I think the moment that had everybody on edge yesterday was Tom Brady deciding midway through the boat parade to chunk the Lombardi trophy from one boat to another. And this was not like the boat was right next to it and they just sort of passed it from one boat to the next. There was a good, I'd say 10, 15 feet between these boats, right? I mean, which for Tom Brady, he equals that out to like, no, it's probably farther than that because it's probably a good 10 yards, right? So 30 feet between these two boats, and Tom Brady, again, in a slightly inebriated state, which he credited later on his social media to avocado tequila, which would you expect Tom Brady to drink anything else? But chunked the Lombardi trophy to a boat full of his teammates 10 yards behind him. That was the most stressful video I've watched in a long time.
Probably wasn't stressful to him because he's like, man, I'm used to
True.
this, man.
This.
I have this trophy around me all the time, pretty much 6 times in my life. Let me just go ahead and throw this. I'm used to this. If it breaks, I got 6 more. They're just replace this. That's it.
Well, see, no,
So
he has 6 more. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this is only their second one, right? So they were probably a little bit nervous, like, Tom, we don't have all these. But that being said, Tom Brady's probably like, listen, if they drop it, I'll hire the scuba crew. They'll go down and find it. Everything will be fine. Also, if there's one person in the world that you're going to trust to make sure that pass gets completed, got to think it's Tom Brady, right?
yeah, and also he's just like, y'all, relax. I brought y'all the Super Bowl. Relax. So let me do what I want.
As you were watching this yesterday, Cam, how jealous were you as a Falcons fan? Because I was filled with so much envy and so much rage yesterday watching the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just get to celebrate that. Their second Super Bowl in franchise history, while my Atlanta Falcons have none. I obviously experienced the humor of it with Tom Brady, and then, like I said, Gronk doing Gronk things. Like Gronk becoming partying shirtless is becoming a biannual thing, right? It happens once every 2 years. He's going to be shirtless in some sort of parade celebrating a Super Bowl. As a Falcons fan, I wanted that to be Julio Jones and Matt Ryan, right? I wanted Deion Jones with the goggles on celebrating. It's just Grady Jarrett getting a party celebrating a Super Bowl win, man. It's just, maybe it's selfish, maybe it's narcissistic, but whenever I see anything like this, immediately go back to, why can't my damn teams win a championship?
Yeah, I started punching air yesterday, and Christian, it was worth being in Tampa. When people ask, because they knew I wasn't from Tampa. They could just look. I looked kind of lost. They're like, "Oh, where are you from, Atlanta?" They're like, "Oh, wow. I feel bad, man. You're a Falcons fan." It's just like, hold on. I want to say you're a Tampa fan. but now they're the cream of the crop.
Right.
So yeah, Tampa used to be the laughing stock. Now they're the cream of the crop. They
But
just suck.
did they? Because they, since the early 2000s, have had infinitely more Super Bowl trophies than the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, but I mean, look, they had that one Super Bowl win. After that, they've been the worst franchise like in the league, winning percentage wise.
Well, I mean, I guess if you're an Atlanta Falcons fan, that is kind of the thing that can give you hope is you can go from being the laughing stock of the league, having a quarterback go 30 for 30, and then you bring the right pieces in, and Tom Brady is obviously the right piece. Like, that goes without saying. But you get the right coaches in there, you get the right infrastructure in there, and you get hot. You can go out and beat the best team in the league over the last 3 years and beat the hell out of them in the Super Bowl and win a ring. So, if anything, if you want to take any positives away from that as an Atlanta Falcons fan, is you still have Matt Ryan, you still have Julio Jones, you still have Deion Jones and Grady Jarrett. If you could put some pieces around them, no one in the NFL is exponentially can't get there within 2 or 3 years far off.
Yeah, I mean, it's true, but it's a lot of luck to go with that with a Super Bowl run, and it's sad to say, but it just seems like that 2016 Falcons team is like, dang, this might
No,
be the
you're
last
exactly
time.
right.
That
You're
might be the
exactly right.
last time. It might
We
be the
talked
last
about
time we
with
see it in a
Florida.
long time.
Yeah, we talked
So
about with Florida this past year is your offense isn't going to be that good again for a while, right? You caught fire with Kyle Trask, you had Kyle Pitts, Kadarius Toney, you had arguably probably the second best offense in the country, and you were a couple plays away from beating Alabama. The shoe throw against LSU, right? It's just now your window's closed, and not very many teams are like the Patriots were or like Alabama has been, where that window just stays wide open for them to crawl through and grab another national championship or another Super Bowl. Yeah, 2016, that was the window, didn't get it, and then since then everything's come crashing down, back to back 7-9 seasons, followed by the disaster of a 2020 season. Now you got a top 4 pick though, so at least we can be optimistic about that.
yeah, I am, because it's kind of like a reset button towards the future. That's the only reason why. But winning right now, it's not going to help us as of right now.
It's true. But again, Tom Brady, Tampa Bay Bucks celebrating. It looked a little bit different too than the Super Bowl celebrations in New England. Obviously, they were on boats, but just a little bit looser too there with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Rob Gronkowski getting a party in Florida after a Super Bowl win is just, it's a dangerous, dangerous game that you're playing right there. Even Ben said it yesterday on 3 and Out. It's like you have to be at an elite level to keep up with Rob Gronkowski. But people out there will know day drinking on a boat is a different level of inebriation. I don't want to know what Super Bowl inebriation looks like. And so combine those two things. I think it was Mike Golick Jr. pointed that out. You combine those two things, that is a state of inebriation that very few people have ever been able to witness. We got more to come here on Second Down. Anthony Trace from PFF is going to join us in the 3 o'clock hour. He put out his top 10 quarterbacks returning for college football in 2021. And there was some interesting names omitted from his list. We'll come back and dive into that. Also, just a few days away now from pitchers and catchers reporting for the Atlanta Braves. Of course, we'll have all of your spring training coverage right here as we are your home of the Atlanta Braves. I believe 10 spring training games going to be on the radio for you. Also, coming up next month, going to have March Madness for you as well. So just a busy couple of months coming up here on ESPN Radio. When we come back, we're going to dive into that story from PFF and the names they left out in terms of returning quarterbacks in college football. We'll be right back. Christian Gokel alongside Cam Urshery here on Second Down. Glad to have you alongside. We, of course, presented to you by The Uniform Source with 2 locations in Savannah. It's never been easier to go out and get all of the uniforms you can use for work. If you have kids who are in school, they do embroidery. Uniform Source, the spot to go in Savannah. Cam, our good friend Anthony Trache comes on 3 and Out all the time. Has been on with us as well. He breaks it down, man. We're going to have him on talking some Justin Fields versus Zach Wilson as the Atlanta Falcons. A lot of people predicting that they are going to go after a quarterback in the first round at number 4 there. Anthony also put out his top 10 returning starting quarterbacks in college football. And a lot of great names on the list. I think a lot of names that you're going to see towards the top of the Heisman race as well. And number 1 on his list, and I don't know that this is overly arguable, is Spencer Rattler, Cam's number 1 guy from the state of Oklahoma. Spencer Rattler, he's number 1 on the list. And he's got Sam Howell, D'Eriq King, Dillon Gabriel, Michael Penix Jr., Matt Corral, Grayson McCall, DJ Uiagalelei from Clemson, Miles Brennan from LSU, and Kedon Slovis from USC as his top 10 returning quarterbacks. Cam, I see you rubbing the chin right there. I don't know if it's in confusion, deep thought, but I feel like a couple of noticeable absentees from that list.
JT Daniels.
1,000%.
Yeah, JT Daniels. That's the one off rip.
And I always like to say it out loud there. You know that if you listen to the show, returning quarterbacks in 2021, right? We're not talking about production that they had in 2020, right? This isn't the top 10 quarterbacks who came back with what they did in 2020, right? This is who are the best quarterbacks coming back for 2021. And Spencer Rattler, I think that's hard to argue just because he just has that it factor to him. And he's playing in that Oklahoma offense. It's kind of been hit or miss so far for him, but it really picked it up at the end of the year, won a Big 12 championship. That's hard to argue. But I think most of the rest of the names on there, you could put JT Daniels up there pretty favorably next to them, right? The other guy I thought should have probably made the list was Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati. That dude balled out all year, came within a last-second field goal of beating Georgia in the Peach Bowl. So I feel like he should have made the list as well. But Cam, I want to run through these names and just yes or no, we'll put it out there as this. Starting week 1 in college football, you're the University of Georgia, you're playing Clemson. Who would you want as your starting quarterback? Would you want JT Daniels or the other guy, okay?
Oh, man.
Spencer Rattler.
Spencer.
All right, that's fair. Sam Howell from North Carolina.
Woo! I would go with Sam Howell just because his body of work.
Sam Howell had one of the best freshman seasons ever. Yeah. Period. End of story in college football history. Last year, his sophomore season wasn't quite the same. I don't know how much you can read into it because it was 2020, kind of a weird year. But against some elite defenses like Notre Dame, he struggled. So I think that's a toss-up. I'd probably take Sam Howell there, but it's really only because, and Kevin's going to laugh at me if he's listening, it's really only because we've only seen 4 games so far and really 1 elite game so far from JT Daniels, that Mississippi State game where he was balled out. I'll take Sam Howell. D'Eriq King. Would you rather have D'Eriq King or JT Daniels starting?
JT Daniels. Yeah, easily. JT Daniels.
Yeah, and what D'Eriq King can do with his feet, silly. He'll probably be a Heisman contender. Miami had a really good season last year. I won't say great, but they had a really good season last year. I'm still taking JT Daniels. What I saw from him, even only in 4 games, I'm taking JT Daniels there. I think this next one's interesting. Dillon Gabriel.
Oh, from UCF.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I would still go JT Daniels only because Gabriel has a better body of work. But I'm talking about battle tested. That win against Cincinnati, JT Daniels actually played pretty good in my opinion. So I'll go with JT Daniels based off of potential.
Yeah, Dillon Gabriel is, he really kind of similar situations. He's kind of the Kedon Slovis of JT Daniel to Mackenzie Milton, who is now at FSU, right? Replaced him when Mackenzie Milton had that devastating injury. Man, I'll go with Dylan Gabriel right now because the stats he's put up are just absurd, but it's close. Michael Penix Jr. from Indiana. Everybody remembers the Penn State win, and then he went toe-to-toe with Ohio State. Justin Fields kind of had an off game in that game, threw some untimely interceptions in that game. But again, we didn't know how bad and inconsistent Penn State was going to be. So that was really an iconic moment the first week that the Big Ten was able to come back, him stretching for that 2-point conversion, right? Would you take JT Daniels or Michael Penix Jr.?
JT Daniels, because I seen Penix Jr. struggle against Ole Miss in a bowl game. I think, didn't he play? Didn't he play against Ole Miss, right?
I don't know. He tore his ACL. I'd have to look at that. I think he had a pretty bad knee injury.
Oh, okay. Well, I know Indiana barely put up any points against Ole Miss, but I would still go JT Daniels. Yeah.
Michael Penix Jr., I think he's really good, but I'd take JT Daniels on that one as well. This next one, I think I might surprise some people. I'll go ahead and say it. Matt Corral, Ole Miss, he's the guy I'm jumping on his bandwagon hard. Like, I don't care what he does at Ole Miss next year in terms of interceptions, because basically their offense has become, we don't care if you throw 3 interceptions so long as you throw 6 touchdowns. Like, that's the Ole Miss offense under Matt Corral. I think going into the next draft, and I've said this before on here, he's probably my number 1 quarterback coming out next year. I mean, the dude's just absurd with the arm talent, the athleticism. He reads defenses really well, but like I said, sometimes it's the decision-making that really gets Matt Corral. I'm taking Matt Corral over JT Daniels right now.
Agreed. He has probably the most live arm out of all the quarterbacks that we have said. And he's just in a free realm in the offense. So I would take him over JT Daniels right now.
Yeah, he's got the threat with his legs as well. They got a couple other quarterbacks that they'll rotate in there, but I mean, Matt Corral just is absurd with his talent. All right, Grayson McCall, Coastal Carolina. He beat a guy that a lot of people think is going to go in the top 3 of this NFL draft, and Zach Wilson and BYU.
I give you that, but I still got to go JT though. I still do. It's not like, I mean, BYU, don't get me wrong, they were good, but they weren't like the best team in the country either. I mean, I think the talent was neck and neck.
Yeah, Grayson McCall is an interesting one because Grayson McCall, that Coastal Carolina offense, the option out of the pistol, it really, no one else runs that same style as offense as them. They do a really good job. Jamie Chadwell and that coaching staff, they do something really unique up there with the Chanticleers. I think Grayson McCall is great for Coastal Carolina, and they've built the offense around him. I'm still taking JT Daniels over him. And also, Grayson McCall's got to avoid what we saw out of Bo Nix last year, which is the sophomore slump. Is he able to keep that trend going? It's going to be tough because the Sun Belt's going to be really good next year. And listen, I love JT Daniels, and I think we both agree he needs to be on this top 10 list. Next guy, I think is going to be a finalist for the Heisman Trophy. DJ Uiagalelei from Clemson. I'm going to have to keep working on that. It was like when Tua came out, but I'm going to have to keep working on that. JT Daniels is excellent. This guy's different.
Yeah. Uiagalelei. That's what we're going to say right now. Yeah, I mean, he's better than JT Daniels as of right now. I would take him over JT Daniels, but that does not mean they would beat Georgia in the opener. It's a lot that goes to it.
I like how you qualified that.
Yeah, he has a live arm, though. Like,
this
really
one surprised me that he was up there. And he did get injured in some of the games that he was able to play in. They put up a ton of points, albeit in losses, but still the offense put up a ton of points. Miles Brennan from LSU.
I like Miles Brennan. I mean, like you said, a lot of losses against really bad. I mean, all those teams he put up points against were bad teams at the time. So I'll take JT Daniels slightly, though. He's not a bad quarterback.
Yeah, no, they got beat by Mississippi State. He still put up a ton of yards in that game. I remember was when everyone thought Mississippi State was all of a sudden world beaters, and then lost to Missouri as well in a really tight game that came down to the wire. So I'm taking JT Daniels over Miles Brennan. I think Miles Brennan's good. I think you'll see a little bit more consistency from him this year as they try to get more towards what they were doing on offense with Joe Burrow. Hopefully that LSU defense can get something figured out as well after the 1-year experiment with Bo Pelini there didn't end up working out. But right now I'm taking JT Daniels over Miles Brennan as well. And finally, this one's really interesting. He is the guy who replaced JT Daniels at USC. JT Daniels deciding to transfer when he got back. Kedon Slovis.
Give me JT. I just think USC is so overrated now. Not like they were back in the day, 04, 05, 06, the cream of the crop days. So I'd take JT Daniels if they had to get in the matchup. I would personally.
Slovis is interesting because he's very much the NFL prototype, right? He's got that live arm very much like JT Daniels have, but he has a little bit more zip on it. JT Daniels, I think Georgia fans saw, really puts a lot of touch on the ball, and he likes to throw those big arcing deep balls. It's hard to pick the guy that beat the other guy out, even though I know a lot of Georgia fans would be like, we take Justin Fields over Jake Fromm, and they're saying that Jake Fromm picked the right guy. So right now, based off what I saw those last 4 games, I'd take JT Daniels there as well. So, I mean, I think consensus, we think he should at least be in the top 10, probably top 8, top 6 in this one. But how much of it do you think? And we'll talk to Anthony Trace about it later. But how much of it do you think is just the fact he only played 4 games?
I mean, it plays a lot. He only played 4 games, and in those 4 games, he only played one formidable opponent, which wasn't a Power 5 school. So it has a lot to do with it.
Now, one thing that should make JT Daniels happy and make a lot of Georgia fans happy, in Anthony Trace put these out yesterday, his top 10 returning receivers for 2021. One George Pickens comes in at number 4 after a couple of Ohio State wide receivers go 1, 2. George Pickens comes in at number 4. I'm excited, Cam, to see what he could do in 2021 because he had a pretty good season. Like, a lot of people were just expecting him to explode, right? Maybe break Terrence Edwards' single season receiving record, finally have another Georgia receiver break that 1,000-yard mark. And it kind of, and a lot of that had to do with the quarterback position, right? Stetson Bennett coming in, Dwan Mathis struggles. But I felt like what happened was once JT Daniels got in there and they had that offense wide open, we saw George Pickens with a lot of double coverage. And so we saw a lot more towards Burton. Arian Smith sort of started coming on as the year went. I think this junior season, we're going to see Todd Monken finally with a full spring to work through, find ways to get George Pickens the ball.
I agree. He was nicked up this year. Not the year we necessarily expected. Not a bad year. But next year, I think he's going to break out because, like you said, it's the second season in that offense, and we might see something we saw with Shanahan with the Falcons where they break out this year in the second year.
Yeah, and I think the other thing Georgia fans need to be excited about, Dominic Blaylock, right? Amazing freshman season, gets hurt in the SEC championship game against LSU, misses this past year. But, I mean, he was Georgia's as good as George Pickens was that regular season back in 2019. As good as George Pickens was, and then obviously he exploded in the Sugar Bowl against Baylor, Dominic Blaylock was better in their freshman season. Dominic Blaylock was the better receiver, had a huge touchdown catch against Auburn, and that was the Derrick Brown, Big Cat, Marlon Davidson defensive line Auburn, right? I think Dominic Blaylock could be in for a big season, but just those weapons around him is the edge that I'm going to give to JT Daniels in a lot of these picks, right? Like, I think Derek King maybe has an outside shot of being a Heisman contender. I think Spencer Rattler is like number 1A in terms of Heisman favorites. I put Sam Howell up there, but they've been so inconsistent the last couple of years that though he may put the stats up there, if his team has 3 losses, he's probably not going to get that favorable Heisman hype. Obviously, the kid from Clemson is going to be up there in terms of Heisman races. And then, again, let's see what they can do in year 2 under Lane Kiffin. But if Matt Corral and them can go out there and beat some of these teams, like beat Auburn, beat LSU, and play Alabama close again, I think you could see Matt Corral up at the top towards the Heisman race.
I got a good one, Christian. If JT Daniels and Georgia beats Clemson and they go the season undefeated into the SEC championship, he will be in the Heisman discussion easily, because that means he will have to put up numbers.
I think the one thing that might hold him back is the fact that Georgia's still going to try to run the football, and you have all of those amazing running backs. I mean, Zamir White coming back was nuts, but you still have Kendall Milton in there, still have James Cook in there, and a plethora of other running backs as well. They're going to still try to be as close to 50-50 as possible. So I don't know if he's going to – his play might indicate it, but the stats might not. Like you might have some games like South Carolina last year where they're gapping him for 8-9 yards a rush, and so he really doesn't have to do that much. Georgia's not going to force feed JT Daniels, right? Like some of these other schools do with their quarterbacks. And if they're up 21-0 in the second half, they're just going to let that clock start to bleed out and just move on to the next game. Kirby Smart, very similar to Mark Richt, is just as happy with the game where you win 28-7 as he is with the game that you win 42-24, right? Not going to have as many yards. It's not going to look as pretty. Same result. He's just as happy to move on. So I think that might be the one thing holding him back from a chance. I think a running back at Georgia has a much better chance than a quarterback at Georgia of winning a Heisman.
You might be right, but I'm just looking at I don't know why I'm looking at what Alabama did last year. That probably can't be reciprocated, but
well, I mean, nobody thought that what LSU did could be duplicated, and then Mac Jones comes out and breaks Joe Burrow's single season passer rating record and efficiency record. So, I mean, as much as we say that, a couple years ago or 3 years ago when Tua did it, you didn't think they were going to be able to do it. Then Joe Burrow comes and does it. You've seen Baker Mayfield at Oklahoma do it, and then Kyler Murray the very next year came out and broke his efficiency record. So we say it every time. It's like, man, it's going to be really hard to duplicate, and then it seems like every single year someone's able to do it.
Yeah, I'm just hoping JT is that guy that can go ahead and do it. He showed real promise last year, so I hope he can come in the next year and do it.
There you go. Christian Gokel alongside Cam Ursery here on Second Down. We got more to come. ESPN broke down the key questions to the offseason. One of the ones circling around the Falcons. Which head coach that just took over a franchise will have the most wins in 2021? We'll dive into that when we come back right here on ESPN Radio. Welcome back into Second Down right here on ESPN Radio. Christian Gokel, glad to have you alongside. Cam, a very happy Matt and Julio Day to you today, 2/11. I know it's one of your favorite holidays out there to celebrate, man. Happy Matt and Julio Day.
Hey, been watching them growing up. Happy Man Julio Day.
Do you find yourself struggling with, on one side of it, you're like, man, I hope the Falcons go out there and get Justin Fields, and on the flip side of it, you're like, but Matty Ice, that's my guy right there.
Yeah, that's my guy, but Matt understands, getting a quarterback for the future.
Oh, it's Matt now. You guys are on that first name basis.
yeah, that's my guy, man. First name basis. He knows we're gonna go out there and get a quarterback for the future, but we love him here. He's a Hall of Famer. We love him here.
I'm 1,000% with you, and I do believe in my heart of hearts, Matt Ryan will be back in 2021. I don't know how they move him with that contract, but I've been wrong before. For all I know, we'll see Cam's guy, Zach Wilson, starting week 1 for the Atlanta Falcons in 2021. Who knows? But ESPN.com put out a new story. They got together with some of their best NFL writers and asked some of the key questions for the offseason. And one of the questions that they posed was, which new head coach will have the most wins in 2021? Now, Cam, before I read you some of their answers, which names immediately jump to mind for you? Because, I mean, I got to think Arthur Smith's up there, right?
He's number 1. And then I have the Eagles number 2. That's it. And those are only 2 teams I see getting 8+ wins. That's it.
And Mina Kimes is with you. I'll read you what she put down. She said the Falcons were one of the strangest teams in the league in 2020. The defense gave Kansas City one of its most challenging games, but it also got beat down by Taysom Hill. I think a refresh with the coaching staff should revitalize an offense that has underperformed relative to its talent level. Underperformed relative to its talent level is basically how you can describe Georgia sports, period, in general. But absolutely right when you're talking about the Atlanta Falcons. You have Matt Ryan coming in, right? Like, think about what you're having to deal with the Jets, with the Eagles, right? You're having to deal with quarterback controversies. There's only a controversy in Atlanta if you choose to have one, right? The only controversy you have is, do I want to keep him or not? You have a sometimes top 10 quarterback in 2020 quarterback, right? Better than 22 other teams have, but is he your future? So the only controversy you have inside your own head, if you roll out there with Matt Ryan in 2021, you're going to have a damn good quarterback. Oh, by the way, you have Julio Jones on offense as well. I think if you can find a good running back and another piece on the offensive line, you're not far away from being one of the top 10 offenses in the NFL.
Yeah, I 100% agree. There are a few pieces away offensively, a lot of pieces away still defensively, but just to be in that middle tier as far as 9-10 wins, they're not really far from that.
No, I agree with you 1,000%. And the thing that concerns me is on the defensive side, really, and Dean Pease coming in to take over that defense has me really excited, almost as excited as Arthur Smith coming in. But one of the key points I think she mentioned in there was a refresh with the coaching staff. And I don't think it's just the coaching staff, right? Because we've seen 2 different head coaches under Thomas Dimitroff. We saw, now I'm blanking on his name, Smith, the other Smith, and then, of course, Dan Quinn coming up too. So now you have Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot. And I'm excited about Arthur Smith. I think he's done some interesting things with the Titans offense. I'm excited about Dean Pease. I'm amazingly excited about Terry Fontenot taking over that front office, being able to make the personnel decisions, the contract decisions. He was the director of pro scouting for the New Orleans Saints. So the key free agent signings, Mike Smith just came back to me. Sorry. But the key free agent signings that you've seen from the Saints these past few years, where they went from one of the worst defenses in the NFL to one of the best defenses in the NFL, some of the tight ends and running backs. I mean, Latavius Murray has been a damn good running back for the New Orleans Saints. He kind of revitalized his career down there. So I think Terry Fontenot, as much as Arthur Smith, has to do with my level of confidence that, yeah, in terms of new head coaches, new regimes with these NFL franchises, I think the Falcons have to be at the top of the list for most wins in 2021.
I agree. It's a brand new refresher. What they did in New Orleans, I remember growing up, they had a horrible defense. Now they got a top five defense now. Like it's stable, top five. And I just want that for Atlanta to be consistent. Top five in defense, top 10 in offense each and every year. And it starts this year in the draft. We got to build towards that.
Now, I do think the one team that could push the Falcons in terms of having a new coach getting the most wins are the Chargers. They weren't a bad team this past year, and they pushed a lot of really good teams. And they go get Brandon Staley as their new head coach. You still have Justin Herbert out there. You have Bosa out there. I think that's a really good team that's just a couple pieces away from really competing and making a wild card playoff push. So I think they'll be right there with the Falcons.
I have the Chargers went 7-9 this year. I have them going 8-8. I just don't think they're going to improve too much because the division. Kansas City is only going to get better. Denver, they're going to get better. They're trying to get a quarterback. And in Oakland, it's going to be hard to get wins in there.
Cam, I got to remind you, we talked about this on 3 and Out yesterday, right? 17 games. 17 games coming up.
I forgot about that.
No.
That's a big play. 17 games, 7 spots.
How many years is it going to take you to quit doing your projections with 16 games?
It's going to take a long time because that's what we grew up on. It's going to take a minute.
Because it's like the Falcons, right? The Falcons were either 10-6 or 7-9. Like that was the prediction you make about the Falcons. They're either going to go 10-6, 7-9. Now you got to change that. Do you change that to 10-7 and 8-9, or do you change that to 11-6, 7-10?
This changes a lot. I had the Falcons going like 9-7, but let me add that 10. Let me add that 10.
Oh,
10-7.
That one more win in there.
Yeah, let me add that one more and get it to 10-7. Okay, I could do that. Chargers go 8-9 this year.
Yeah, we already had Kevin in here complaining about. He's like, look, all the stats are going to be skewed now, right? Because they're going to have that one extra game every year to just load up and just throw for all the yards. When in reality, most of the teams that are really competing at the end, their starters aren't putting up too many stats in that final game. So Kevin, just calm down. Kevin's still the guy who compares when they extended the MLB season to 162 games. He's like, listen, you got to cut that off. Right? I think it was 148. You got to cut off the records at 148. And that's what the actual record is, this whole 162 stuff skewing all my records. Christian Gokel alongside Cam Rickster here on Second Down. Again, Anthony Trace, PFF, going to join us here in about 30 minutes. Also going to catch up with Mike Griffith from Dog Nation. Going to ask him for the latest from Georgia football. Some interesting news. I know a local Savannah guy, Demetrius Robertson, former Savannah Christian Raider. He is using that extra year of NCAA eligibility to come back for his 6th season of college football. So he'll be in that big Georgia wide receiver room. Also, Julian Rochester, former 5-star, has battled through injuries. He wasn't really a key piece of that defensive line rotation last year alongside Jordan Davis, Wyatt, and Jalen Carter down there. He's also going to come back for his 6th season. That's just wild to me, Cam, right? You have dudes who are probably 23, 24 years old lining up against guys who are theoretically 17, 18 years old. I mean, that's a grown man against a kid who just got out of high school.
That's wild. We better win. That's all I'm saying. That's wild. We better win.
Julian Rochester, that is a grown man lining up against some of these poor 17, 18-year-olds who are just getting in and getting a taste. Oh, by the way, here's Jordan Davis that you have to go up against at practice every single day as well. So I think 2 pretty big gets there for Georgia. According to Dog Nation, Walter Grant will not be back with the University of Georgia. He's not going to use that extra year. And then wide receiver Matt Landers has officially transferred from the program as well. So Mike Griffiths will get us caught up on all of that coming up here. That's around 3:30 as well. But Christian Gokel, Cam Rickster here on Second Down. If you missed any portion of the show, check it out on Spotify, Apple Podcast as well, SoundCloud, and of course, all of the streaming online. You can catch the replays of those on YouTube as well. We'll be right back. Today, National Guitar Day. We have the Twitter poll up right now. What is the greatest guitar solo of all time? We'll talk about that a little bit later on 3 and Out. We'll go on Twitter and answer the Twitter poll. Greatest guitar solo of all time. Cam, I don't know how big of a rock and roll fan you are. But can you give us your favorite guitar solo of all time?
Yeah, SpongeBob, the movie. He did a guitar solo in the Krusty Krab.
I don't know if that was SpongeBob. I think I know exactly what you're talking about. Where they have the rock off and he's like shooting the laser beams out of it. But I don't know, was that a SpongeBob song? Or is that like the halftime show where they used a rock band song and it sounded and looked awesome?
I know they did a halftime show on the football field, and then in the movie,
the halftime show, the Bubble Dome is that's iconic. I mean, maybe the best
iconic
ever.
That's iconic. So hey, I go with my man Sponge.
I'm trying to look up song. Oh, the Goofy Goober, right?
Yeah, the Goofy Goober in the movie. That's what I was talking about in the Krusty Krab.
All right, yeah, that's a hell of a choice. I'll put that up there. I'll let the guys know that's who Cam went with. But Kevin Thomas and I in there talking. Obviously, you got your Stairways to Heaven as some of the most famous. You have Freebird. I would argue Freebird is the most famous. I mean, I'm going to go a little off the wall. Me personally, I'd go Intro Sweet Jane, Lou Reed. But I mean, that's I know there's people out there nodding in the car right now. But if you got Spotify, YouTube, just listen to that because that is that's 8 minutes of just guitar jamming right there. So there aren't wrong answers. I thought her at the Super Bowl, that was nasty. Like I would have just let her play for as long as she wanted to, and we get to the game after that.
Yeah, I actually like her. I listen to her music sometimes. I do.
I mean, that was just you see Andy Reid's face when they panned over to him while she was getting down. He's like got a little head nod going on. Like she was getting down. I thought all the music for the most part was great. I don't know if we got a chance to talk about that. I thought all the music for the most part was outstanding. But I just felt like the weekend got done a disservice because for the most part, A-Cam, you cannot play some of his bangers during the Super Bowl, right? Like that's this is E for everyone, and most of the weekend's bangers are not E for everyone. But at the same time, the songs that he is able to play, they aren't the vibe, right, of the Super Bowl halftime show. They're great songs. I mean, my man dropped $7 million of his own money to bring his vision to life. They're great songs, and he's got a great catalog, but maybe just not the best fit for a halftime show.
Yeah, I love The Weeknd, but his real bangers you can't really necessarily play them. Not at all.
Like if we play them on the radio here, you maybe hear like every third word. Maybe.
Maybe, yeah. But I mean, I like his bangers, but you can't play those at the Super Bowl.
And then
I know that.
Yeah, no. And this is our PSA here, Sunday, Valentine's Day. So make sure you're getting the chocolates, you're getting the flowers. Cam, what is your strategy for gift giving on Valentine's Day? What does it include?
She's watching the show, so I cannot disclose.
You know she is one of the people watching right now?
Yeah.
All right, well, you can't go wrong with flowers, chocolate, jewelry, and an expensive dinner. Like if you hit those things right there, you're gonna be okay. Again, Christian O'Kell, Cam Ursery. We'll talk about this more tomorrow. But BJ, Ben, and Kevin coming up next at 3 o'clock hour. We'll catch up with Anthony Trace from PFF, also Mike Griffith from Dog Nation as well. If you missed any portion of the show today, head over to Spotify, SoundCloud. Make sure you like, rate, review, subscribe, all of it, and we will talk to y'all tomorrow.